Hey, this is a game against, I think, top 5 gold Protoss. When Tom Terran started out as a Silver League dude, and he's now been promoted to gold, so this game made him very proud, I guess. I suspect you're going to lose, because otherwise why would you send me the game, right? So here we go. Alright, so TVP. What you want to do, brother? Orbital on 16. In the past game, you did an orbital on 15, and that's a mistake. I think you're doing it again. Yeah, you got orbital on 15. The faster orbital versus the faster SCV, always go for the SCV, not the orbital. 16 orbital. And the next thing you're worried about is you should have an exactly 3-minute and 30-second factory. You should have an exactly 4-minute bunker. So let's see how that goes. 3-minute, 30-second factory. This is a map where you only need to scout 2 locations. The only goal you have for scouting is to get there before 420, when the stalker should pop out. 420, idiot. And so it takes 40 seconds to get to each base. So if you have 2 bases to scout, then that's 1 minute and 40 seconds. So you should scout at 240. Yeah, 240. So scout when the racks is done. That's what I always do. I was just doing the math to make sure I was right before I told you to do it. But yeah, scout when the racks is done. Get this as soon as you've spent the money on the orbital. So it's like supply, racks, gas, orbital, second depot, gas. So that is all. So notice how at 3:30, that's when one geyser got you 100 gas. So you have 150, 100. This is when your factory should start. Every second you delay your factory, you're delaying an extremely important defensive unit that will probably be the difference between life and death against a void ray push, against an immortal push, against a 4-gate. So you really need to get those first defensive units out as quick as possible. So it looks like the reason that... Why did you not build the factory? It looks like you spent 100 minerals on something. So right now you want the factory, and you got... Okay, you got probably an SCV and a Marine. So the Marine, obviously not very important. You already have a Marine, and he's not going to have a Stalker forever, and you're going to get a bunker. So you don't need that second Marine. I'm surprised that you can't afford an SCV here. There's something wrong with this build if you can't support an SCV. Maybe this refinery was a tiny bit early or something. But yeah, so you want the factory at 3:30, and okay, so if it would really, getting the SCV first would only have delayed you until 3:35. So you'd be like 5 game seconds behind on the factory. I'd be okay with that. But definitely this Marine is delaying the factory for no good reason. Don't do that. Don't make that Marine. So yeah, factory at 3:30. That's cool. That's cool, man. That's cool. And why is this guy sitting here if this guy's gonna make the bunker? That's pretty funny. I guess he's gonna make the bunker. Okay, that makes sense. So 4-minute bunker, pretty important. Here we go. 4-minute bunker. Do it. Do it. So it's 4:20. His stalker can be out. This SCV, I mean this Marine scout. If you only have 1 location to scout, he's gonna get there before the stalker comes out, and that's why I like scouting with my first Marine. But if you got 2 locations to scout, he's not gonna, and he picks the wrong one. Now he's not gonna get any information. But in Gold League, the information you get from scouting might not be accurate anyway, because you saw last game that I just watched, the dude saved up like 400 gas and 400 minerals, and just for no reason. So I don't know. Scouting information is saying if he did what I saw, the only efficient build he could possibly be going for is XYZ. But if people aren't following builds, then that's no longer useful. So he's doing his poke really late, actually, and it's funny that he brought a probe with the poke when it's this late. And your Marine saw it coming. You're gonna have 1 Marine when his poke gets here. That's kind of crazy. I would probably delay that reactor because the reactor is using gas. I would probably get. Also, the Marine Scout is something that I always do when I'm going for 2 racks, because you're gonna have an excess of Marines. You're like, I'm a Marine maniac. I'm Marine all over the place. But in a build like this where you're going 1-1-1. You might not want to sacrifice a Marine. You don't have very many. This bunker is practically empty. Build is just very sloppy. I would definitely look up the actual build and do it exactly, because you're winging it and it's not looking very pretty. So at 6 minutes you're short 2 workers, and you're probably only short 1 worker and 4 in-game seconds. So basically you're short one worker. You were short 1 worker last time too. You have 3 idle workers though. I don't understand that. That's not right. So you know, I've said repeatedly that I often forget supply depots unless I do this trick where I make a supply depot and then I don't rally him back to minerals. And then when he comes up, I see the idle worker button, and I've trained myself, because I'm always looking at the clock and I'm always looking at the minimap anyway. The idle worker button is right there. I'm always looking over here, and when I see the idle worker button, it reminds me to make an SCV, and that's cool. But you obviously haven't trained yourself to look at the idle worker button, so you might not want to try to use my trick, because it's obviously not working for you. So, looks like, again, I said in the last game, you want to hotkey some workers so that you can respond to this kind of pressure without having to look away. Right now, your response is, oh, he's obviously doing something aggressive. I need to look up here, box some dudes, and come down here. And that takes a lot longer than just hitting 2 right-click, you know? So, definitely hotkey workers ahead of time. But this attack from him is really ridiculously stupid. You pulled way too many workers, just like last game. This is so many workers, and that's comes from you boxing everything on these mineral patches, like, because you need to do it quick, because you're like, they got to get over there as quick as possible. I'm not going to pay attention to how many guys I'm bringing. So that's another benefit of hotkeying workers ahead of time. If you hotkey 6 workers, you'll always pull 6 workers, and you don't want to pull 12 when you have pressure. This tank should have focus fired the pylon until it was dead, and should never have been attacking these guys, because you got a wall in. You can repair it. There's no risk of that stuff dying. Your gas is at 500 when he pushes. That's what I'm saying about getting the factory exactly at the right time and getting the starport exactly at the right time, and then building a Banshee the second the starport is done, and building a tank the second the tank rifle factory is done. Like, so many really strong Protoss pushes come at exactly 7 minutes that if you have 500 gas in the bank at 7 minutes, it's so much harder to survive this. You know, like, you might survive now, but you're going to take a bunch of damage. And if the Protoss' attack hadn't been so terribly, terribly bad, like a 7-minute poke from Protoss is supposed to be 2400, and he poked with 1600. So this was actually a pretty bad 4-gate. He cut a ton of workers to do it. This is just a bad Protoss doing a bad build that was a stupid idea in the first place. But if he had done a good build, you would have died, man. You would have died. Just because your army spending at this point is 700. I mean, we're one basing. The whole point of one basing is to have a big army throughout the whole game. And you didn't have a big army. You had a tiny, tiny, terrible army. Also, you're not mining for the longest time because the only unit you have is a siege tank. So you have to keep these SCVs up here just in order to survive this push. And obviously, in the context of I have no army, so I need to keep the guys up here, it's the right move to keep them up here. And you are going to survive this push. Oh, but they're not on auto repair, and you let the tank die for no reason. And yeah, this is just very sloppy, very sloppy. And again, this doesn't come down to the decisions you made in the moment. I think you did all the right things in the moment. These are the right reactions. The problem was the build before his attack. Before you ever saw the Protoss attack you, your build was sloppy. So when he attacked you, you had almost no army and a really bad composition, and no probes hotkey. I mean, no SCVs hotkeyed ahead of time. So there was nothing you could have done really to come through this with shining colors. And now there's no way you're going to spend this 700 gas you've saved up. So this is all very, very sloppy. Learn to do the build exactly the way the build is supposed to be done. Write it down on a piece of paper and do it a bunch of times against the AI so that you can really make sure that you do it right. Because it's so important to have the right stuff at 6 minutes, at 7 minutes. Because that's when all the scary one bases come, man. So I don't know if it's even worth watching the rest of this game. You're so far behind now. You W on spending even though you've had a bigger economy than him all game. More workers anyway. I think you have a smaller economy than him because you didn't drop mules, because you supply blocked yourself, and because you lost 7 workers, and because you've got a good fifth of your workers out from your base. But this should have been like an auto win. His build was so stupid and so bad that with a bunker at the front and a starport completed, it should have been an auto win for you. There should have been no way he could have beaten you with this. You did do the PDD thing, that was great, and you won. But it was really sloppy. It was really bad. I would definitely not call this an emotional victory or something. So 1 worker short at 6 minutes, 0 Marines at 6 minutes. That's really bad. Like I said before, you need 8 Marines per Void Ray. So a 7-minute Void Ray push, you want to have at least 8 Marines at 7 minutes. And every 25 in-game seconds, you get 2 more Marines. So at 7 minutes, the most you can possibly have is going to be 2, 4, 6. So you'd just die to a Void Ray push if you did this. This build would lose to Void Ray push. Second problem was the starport and the factory were late. Also, you don't want to try to use them both right away. Like, either get a tank or get a Banshee, but you can't really afford both. So one of these should be naked. I would get a Banshee first, because then you can pin him. Like, if he's 4-gating, he has to leave Stalkers in his base to defend against Banshees. And now he's worried about Cloak. He's thinking about maybe getting a Robo or maybe getting a Cannon. It'll completely throw him off. So if you get a 3-minute and 30-second factory, 4-minute and 30-second starport, 5-minute and 30-second, you're going to have a Banshee. You show it to him at 5 minutes and 30 seconds before he even has finished Warp Gate technology. Suddenly he can't do a 4-gate. He's like, oh shit, I just got to defend. There's nothing I can do that will get past a bunker and a Banshee. So really get those units out at the appropriate times. The alternative is, instead of the Banshee, if you want to go for 4-minute and 30-second, your factory is done, throw it on a tech lab, and then by 5 minutes and 20 seconds, you'll have a siege tank. So when he gets here, you'll have a second siege tank almost done, and a 4-gate will just be completely unviable, not viable at all. You'll have 2 siege tanks shooting it at that pylon, maybe 3 by the time he actually puts the pylon up there. So yeah, 6 minutes and 30 seconds, you should have 2 siege tanks if you want siege tank, or 2 Banshees. So yeah, dude, ja, avant de cheesy poof. That's all. Do the build properly. Don't pull so many workers, hotkey workers ahead of time, and that is all.